Failing to frame the pregnant wife, Mistress slaps her. The millionaire husband stops her just in time. A whirlwind of secrets, power, and impossible dreams threatens to tear one family apart until an unexpected hero steps forward. In this riveting tale, Cinderella isn't just a fairy tale figure. She's a modern woman caught in a web of decay. It's spun by a jealous mistress, determined to seize fortune and status for herself. When a ruthless slap nearly crushes Cinderella's spirit, a protective millionaire husband intervenes just in time. Love, betrayal, and redemption clash beneath the glittering lights of high society. Brace yourself for a roller coaster of emotions, hidden agendas, and courageous hearts that refuse to surrender. This is a story you'll never forget. Cinderella was not her real name, of course. Her parents had named her Cynthia Elaine Robles, but all her life, friends and family teased her affectionately by calling her Cinderella. At first, it was a playful nickname because she was gentle in spirit and forever loved to dance. As years passed, however, it took on a second meaning. She grew up surrounded by the gloom of a broken family and, at times, found solace imagining she was the Cinderella from fairy tales, who would eventually find her own bright future. But this is not the simple story of a girl in rags who meets a prince at a ball. Instead, this story unfolds in the lavish domain of a sprawling mansion located just outside the city of Greenwich Hills. Here, Cynthia lived with her father, Hector Robles, a self-made millionaire known for his philanthropic ventures, and a man whose heart had grown heavy with grief after losing his wife, Cynthia's mother, to a sudden illness. Hector was determined to keep his daughter safe, showering her with love and everything money could buy. Yet all the wealth in the world couldn't fill the void left by her mother's passing. When Cynthia was 18, her father remarried. In a swirl of public fascination, paparazzi cameras, and society gossip, Hector wed Naomi Bordeaux, a younger woman from a prominent family. Naomi arrived like a whirlwind, wearing designer gowns to breakfast and criticizing household staff for the slightest lapses. She brought with her an air of ostentation that might have dazzled many, but for Cynthia, it was jarring. Overnight, the quiet mansion became a stage for Naomi's endless parties and fancy gatherings. Despite Naomi's flamboyance, Cynthia tried to welcome her new stepmother with an open heart. She was prepared to share her father's attention and do whatever it took to adapt. But from the outset, Naomi saw Cynthia not as a sweet, gracious daughter, but as a threat. After all, Cynthia stood to inherit a substantial fortune when she turned 21, and Naomi wanted to ensure none of it slipped through her fingers. Determined to cement her place in the family's wealth, Naomi behaved more like an adversary than a maternal figure. Still, Hector seemed oblivious. He was enthralled by Naomi's charms, perhaps hoping that this second marriage would bring him some solace and happiness. He was too busy navigating his booming businesses and new philanthropic projects to notice the subtle ways. Naomi undermined Cynthia's confidence and stifled her joy. On the surface, the household maintained a veneer of order and politeness. Staff continued to follow Cynthia's soft-spoken directions, but they also glanced nervously at Naomi, keenly aware of the newcomer's foul temper and manipulative nature. While Naomi's petty malice simmered in the background, Cynthia found pockets of comfort in her life. She had a steadfast friend in Christine Delgado, a childhood companion from a neighboring estate. Christine was a brilliant law student with a knack for sniffing out injustice. Christine's unwavering support provided Cynthia with the courage to keep her head held high, even as Naomi's underhanded schemes began to intensify. Little did Cynthia know, a storm of colossal proportions was about to break over her life. The gentle girl who once believed wholeheartedly in fairy tale endings would soon be tested in ways she never imagined. No magic wands or fairy godmothers would appear, only real, human choices made in the face of deception and greed. In the midst of it all, a powerful man would eventually step forward in her defense, unveiling a truth far more dramatic than any story Cynthia had ever read. As the years progressed, the tension between Cynthia and Naomi grew more palpable. Cynthia, now 20, had blossomed into a kind-hearted young woman pursuing her passions. She volunteered at a local children's center, teaching dance classes and organizing small recitals to raise funds for disadvantaged youth. Her heart was all about giving back, an echo of her late mother's empathetic spirit. Naomi, for her part, was unraveling under the weight of her own envy. Although Hector was a generous husband, lavishing her with diamonds, exotic vacations, and the prestige of being Mistress, Robles, she could not rid herself of the gnawing worry that Cynthia, with her 21st birthday just months away, might overshadow her in the household and gain full control over a sizable trust fund. From the outside, Naomi was always dazzling. At every gala, she appeared in shimmering gowns, smiling for cameras, entertaining CIPs. But behind closed doors, she seethed whenever she saw Cynthia elegantly descending the marble staircase in a modest dress, her natural grace and kindness shining like an inner light. Naomi felt threatened, and that feeling fed her compulsion to manipulate everyone around her, including the household staff. To further complicate matters, Hector's business empire had doubled in scope over the last few years. He was on the brink of finalizing a new deal with major international partners. This deal meant Hector spent countless hours traveling and hosting late-night meetings, which left Naomi with ample opportunity to reign unchallenged over the mansion. One afternoon, Naomi conceived of a cunning plan. She persuaded Hector that Cynthia was no longer safe in her old bedroom because of an alleged structural issue, an excuse she manufactured from thin air. Naomi insisted it was urgent to move Cynthia into a smaller room in a distant wing of the mansion while the repairs were carried out. Hector, worrying for his daughter's safety, readily agreed. And so Cynthia found herself uprooted from the spacious suite she had cherished since childhood. She did not complain, though she felt an odd pang in her chest to leave the room that still housed so many of her mother's memories. In truth, the forced relocation was a small piece of Naomi's plan to ostracize Cynthia within her own home. Naomi put on a show of playing the concerned mother figure, pretending to watch over Cynthia's well-being. She assigned a new maid, Yvette, to look after the young woman. Yvette was a quiet, timid figure who walked on eggshells around Naomi. She followed every command diligently, no matter how unethical or biased it appeared. Amid these rearrangements, a new figure appeared on the stage, Jonathan Harrington, a suave young businessman who had partnered with Hector on a philanthropic project. Handsome, well-spoken, and hailing from an old money family, Jonathan was instantly drawn to Cynthia's warmth. He began spending time at the mansion, discussing future charity events and working closely with her to plan fundraisers. Their shared passion for helping children bonded them quickly, forming a bond of respect and camaraderie that lit a small spark in both hearts. Naomi watched them warily. Jonathan's interest in Cynthia stung her like an open wound. While Naomi had married Hector for security, she still craved validation from any desirable man within arm's reach. But Jonathan seemed uninterested in her carefully orchestrated flirtations, focusing instead on Cynthia's ideas and intelligence. Naomi's jealousy evolved into outright contempt, fueling her determination to destroy Cynthia's reputation if that's what it took to maintain her power. Soon, Naomi's cunning began to expand beyond the walls of the mansion. She started planting subtle rumors among the city's elite, whispering that Cynthia was manipulative, that her sweet demeanor was a carefully staged act. At gala dinners, Naomi would turn to her circle of well-coiffed friends and say, with affected concern, "I love Cynthia, but I worry about her ambition. She seems so eager to prove something." Those who didn't know Cynthia well began to accept Naomi's words at face value. A shadow of suspicion formed over Cynthia's otherwise spotless image, and Cynthia, unsuspecting, continued her life as usual. She danced with children at the community center, planned her birthday celebration with Christine, and worked alongside Jonathan on philanthropic projects. She never imagined that the rug could be pulled out from under her so swiftly, that the stage was being set for a terrible betrayal, one that would test her courage and integrity to their limits. Naomi's grand plan hinged on a singular ambition, turning Hector and the rest of society against Cynthia, leaving Naomi as the sole heir to the family's fortune and the apex of the Robles' social circle. She orchestrated each step carefully, using Yvette as her inside informant and an unsuspecting scapegoat if things went wrong. In the weeks leading up to Cynthia's 21st birthday, Naomi put her manipulative talents to work. She started by implementing strict rules that subtly restricted Cynthia's freedoms. For example, she insisted that Cynthia should stop visiting the children's center alone, claiming it was too dangerous for someone of her status. Naomi also pressured the staff to keep an eye on the young woman's activities, logging her comings and goings in a small notebook. Her excuse? For Cynthia's own safety. But in reality, these logs were meant to create a paper trail Naomi could twist to her advantage, painting Cynthia as reckless or irresponsible if the opportunity arose. One of Naomi's most cunning moves involved intercepting Cynthia's mail. Using the staff under her control, she gained access to letters, bills, and invitations addressed to Cynthia. Whenever something that could potentially damage Cynthia's reputation landed in their mailbox, like a misaddressed letter containing financial details about the trust fund, Naomi quickly claimed it. Accidentally fell into her hands. Then she would twist those details and spread half-truths to undermine Cynthia's character. She even tried to sabotage Cynthia's credit by ordering items in her name and returning them, incurring fees. Though minor in the grand scheme, these small pricks of sabotage were carefully orchestrated acts of war in Naomi's mind. Meanwhile, Christine Delgado noticed odd discrepancies in Cynthia's day-to-day life. Christine was no fool. Law school had taught her to question everything. Why was Cynthia suddenly missing important invitations to charitable events? Why had she started receiving notices for credit card bills she never opened? Christine confronted Cynthia with her suspicions, but Cynthia believed it must all be some big misunderstanding. She couldn't fathom that Naomi might be orchestrating a deliberate campaign to erode her reputation. Then came a pivotal moment, the annual Winter's Grace fundraiser at the Greenwick Grand Hotel. This event was a social apex, attended by the city's wealthiest families, celebrities, and politicians. Hector Robles was slated to give the keynote speech, and both Cynthia and Naomi had parts to play. Cynthia was to perform a choreographed dance with the children from her center, and Naomi would handle public relations and host the after-party. 2 days before the event, Naomi orchestrated a staged scene in the mansion's study. She asked Yvette to slip one of the precious Robles family heirlooms into Cynthia's purse. The plan was simple. Naomi would feign alarm and accuse Cynthia of stealing the heirloom. Naomi knew her stepdaughter's heart was pure and that the charges would be outrageous. But she hoped the shock and scandal would create doubt among onlookers and tarnish Cynthia's name just enough to disrupt her close bond with Hector and Jonathan. On the night of the so-called theft, Naomi put on a theatrical show, searching the entire house with exaggerated alarm. She declared that a diamond-studded necklace, one of Hector's beloved gifts, had gone missing. Staff members, wide-eyed and concerned, helped comb through each room while Cynthia stood on the sidelines, entirely baffled by the sudden panic. "I saw Miss Cynthia in the study earlier," Yvette said, her voice trembling with faux apprehension. She glanced at Naomi, who gave a subtle nod of approval. She was near the jewelry display. Cynthia's eyes widened. "I've never gone near that jewelry display," she protested calmly, though her heart was pounding. "Why would I even touch your necklace?" Naomi wore the mask of a grieving victim. "I don't want to accuse anyone wrongly," she said, her hand pressed to her chest. "But we must check everything. This necklace is priceless. My husband entrusted it to me." She directed a staff member to search Cynthia's belongings. Within minutes, the missing necklace was found in Cynthia's purse, exactly as Naomi had arranged. A hush fell over the staff. Christine, who happened to be visiting that evening, looked mortified, her suspicion growing by the second. Meanwhile, Cynthia was rendered speechless. She frantically tried to explain that she had no idea how the necklace got there. Yet the cold expressions from Naomi and the staff's uncertain glances weighed heavily in the air. Naomi nearly smirked at her success. The first step of her plan appeared to be unfolding perfectly. But fate had other designs. Hector, who had arrived home early from a business trip, walked into the hallway at the height of the commotion. He found Cynthia clutching the necklace, tears in her eyes, and Naomi standing before her like a righteous avenger. His confusion and concern were evident as he listened to the claims. Though Naomi's performance was convincing, Hector's paternal instinct did not waver. He did not want to leap to conclusions. After all, he had known Cynthia's heart since she was a child. For the moment, the matter ended with Hector demanding that everyone remain calm until he could investigate the situation thoroughly. Naomi had hoped for immediate outrage, but Hector's cautious approach dampened her victory. Still, the plan was in motion. Cynthia was now under suspicion, and Naomi's next steps could be even more destructive. The morning after the staged theft, tensions remained high in the Robles mansion. The staff tiptoed around, unsure whom to believe. Some had always admired Cynthia's kindness. Others felt compelled to align with Naomi, anxious not to lose their jobs. Hector locked the necklace in his study and prepared to question everyone involved, determined to get to the bottom of the mystery. But Cynthia, emotionally drained and mortified, chose a different path. She slipped out of the mansion early, heading to the local cafe where she often met Christine. Christine was already seated in a corner booth, looking up at Cynthia with worried eyes. "You look exhausted," Christine said gently, as Cynthia slid into the seat opposite her. "I got your text. Tell me what happened in detail, no omitting anything." Cynthia sighed, hands wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee. She recounted the entire ordeal: Naomi's hysterics, Yvette's planted suspicion, the discovery of the necklace in her purse. Her voice shook as she asked, "Why would they do this to me? Is it just jealousy? Am I really that threatening to Naomi?" Christine's expression hardened with conviction. "Naomi is threatened by your share of the inheritance. She's trying to cast doubt on your character. If she can show you're dishonest or unstable, she might be able to control or diminish your claim when you turn 21. Cynthia's eyes filled with tears, but not just tears of hurt, tears of exasperation. "I've never even wanted the money for myself. All I want is to continue my mother's philanthropic work. My father knows that." She paused, voice trembling. "But does he still trust me?" Christine reached across the table and gently squeezed Cynthia's hand. "He loves you. That's different from trusting you, but love has a way of guiding people to do the right thing eventually. Plus, he's a smart man." Naomi might fool some people, but Hector knows who you are at your core. The question is, how do we prove Naomi's setting you up? Before Cynthia could respond, Jonathan Harrington walked in. He spotted them, gave a small, concerned smile, and approached. Christine texted me last night. "I'm so sorry, Cynthia," he said, sliding into the booth beside her. "I've known you for months now, and I know you'd never stoop to stealing jewelry." A wave of relief washed over Cynthia, though she felt her cheeks warm with embarrassment. "Thank you for believing me." "One, I just don't know how to get out of this mess." Jonathan frowned. "What if we find evidence that Naomi orchestrated this?" Yvette might be the key. She seems terrified of Naomi. Maybe she knows more than she's letting on. Christine nodded. "I had the same thought. If we can persuade Yvette to speak the truth, it could turn things around." Yet persuading Yvette to risk her livelihood and face Naomi's wrath was no small task. Jonathan offered to help, but Cynthia was hesitant. She already felt fragile enough. Confronting Naomi or Yvette directly terrified her. Naomi was a seasoned manipulator with a cunning streak. Cynthia feared that if she made one wrong move, Naomi would twist it against her in a more vicious manner. For now, they agreed on a cautious approach. Christine would quietly probe the household staff for information and keep tabs on Naomi's next steps. Jonathan would remain supportive, offering his business connections if needed, and Cynthia, she decided she would try to maintain a semblance of normalcy, continue her volunteering, and wait for an opportunity to prove her innocence. Deep down, however, Cynthia was haunted by a nagging fear. Naomi was powerful, connected, and unscrupulous. The woman had already proven her willingness to lie and manipulate. If Naomi could orchestrate a stolen necklace fiasco so convincingly, what else might she be plotting? The unknown possibilities cast a gloomy cloud over the days leading up to Cynthia's milestone birthday. Amid the uncertainty, though, a new resilience began to awaken in Cynthia. She realized she had to rise above her own fears, if not for herself, then for her late mother's legacy and for all the children who depended on her work at the community center. The path ahead looked treacherous, but Cynthia was no shrinking violet. She would press on, holding on to the belief that truth, once uncovered, could be her greatest ally. And so, while Naomi refined her next move, Cynthia and her few loyal companions braced themselves for a battle they had no choice but to fight. Despite the cloud of suspicion around her, Cynthia tried to focus on the upcoming Winter's Grace fundraiser. She trained daily with the children for their dance performance, determined not to let personal turmoil overshadow the charitable cause. The children, blissfully unaware of adult politics, brought a sense of joy and normalcy to her life. Their laughter and excitement reminded her that hope still existed, even in the darkest of times. Meanwhile, Naomi found new ways to tighten her hold. She had a keen sense of when and where to strike, and she now aimed to discredit Cynthia on a larger scale. Naomi had found out through Hector that a journalist from a reputable magazine was writing a feature on the Robles family's philanthropic endeavors. This journalist, Marcus Bellamy, was scheduled to attend the fundraiser and interview the family. Naomi seized the opportunity. She invited Marcus to a private luncheon at the mansion a few days before the fundraiser, ostensibly to help him understand the Robles family dynamic. What he didn't know was that Naomi intended to plant seeds of suspicion against Cynthia. Throughout the luncheon, Naomi waxed lyrical about her philanthropic heart and her concern for Cynthia, who she painted as an emotional, possibly troubled young woman. She meticulously dropped hints about the incident with the missing necklace, carefully omitting mention of any proof of Cynthia's innocence. To maintain an air of fairness, Naomi would sigh dramatically and say, "I love her as my own, but I worry for her." So much pressure can do strange things to a young person. Marcus, in search of a compelling story, couldn't help taking notes. His questions to Naomi revealed a curiosity about the rumored animosity within the family. Sensing an angle, he pressed Naomi for details. Naomi feigned hesitation, as though reluctant to air the family's dirty laundry. In reality, she was thrilled that her narrative was taking shape in a journalist's notebook. After the luncheon, Naomi felt invincible. She was certain that a published piece questioning Cynthia's integrity would damage Cynthia's reputation beyond repair. At best, it would cause enough scandal to isolate Cynthia socially. At worst, it might push Hector to reconsider the terms of Cynthia's inheritance. Naomi saw this as a victory on the horizon. Yet, in the background, Christine quietly gathered information. She studied the staff's behavior, noticing that Yvette appeared increasingly uneasy. On one occasion, Christine overheard Naomi scolding Yvette for some trivial error. Naomi's words were laced with venom. "You'll do as I say, or you'll regret it." Yvette's pale face told Christine everything she needed to know. The young maid was deeply entangled in Naomi's schemes and terrified of the consequences. But how to get Yvette to talk? Christine debated confronting her directly. She toyed with the idea of offering Yvette legal protection or threatening Naomi with a lawsuit for defamation. But everything had to be carefully orchestrated. One misstep could spook Yvette and drive her deeper into Naomi's clutches. Jonathan, on the other hand, made it his mission to stay close to Cynthia. He feared that in a moment of despair, Cynthia might collapse under the weight of the false accusations. He accompanied her to rehearsals, offered moral support, and continued brainstorming ways to expose Naomi. Their shared moments, though often overshadowed by stress, took on a quiet intimacy. They discovered they could trust each other completely, an unspoken bond that was growing steadily, perhaps into something more than friendship. As the days to the fundraiser ticked by, Cynthia found an unexpected wellspring of determination. She refused to let Naomi's campaign destroy her spirit. Late at night, she practiced extra hours with the children, perfecting the dance routine. She wrote personalized thank you notes to donors, ignoring the rumors swirling around her. Her focus on kindness and community work shone like a small candle, defying the darkness that Naomi was so diligently weaving. In a household where every whisper could be a lie and every gesture might be weaponized, Cynthia's steadfast belief in goodness was both her shield and her sword. Little did she know that this unwavering spirit would soon be tested to its breaking point, and that Naomi's next move would bring the conflict to a dramatic crescendo, one that would forever alter the family's course. The Winter's Grace fundraiser was more than just a charity event. It was a spectacle of high society, complete with ice sculptures, crystal chandeliers, and a red carpet entrance for the city's elite. Held in the grand ballroom of the Greenwick Grand Hotel, every detail exuded opulence, from the live orchestra playing melodic tunes to the elegantly dressed guests swirling in conversation. Cynthia arrived early, guiding a group of excited children through the backstage area. She wore a simple but stunning midnight blue gown, her hair swept up in a graceful chignon. The children, dressed in white and silver costumes, glowed with anticipation. For them, the night was about dancing and receiving applause for their hard work. For Cynthia, it was also about reclaiming her dignity. She felt a surge of nerves, wondering whether the rumors Naomi had spread had reached the ears of potential donors. In the main hall, Naomi glided among the guests in a dazzling champagne-colored dress. Her diamond jewelry caught the light with every step she took. She greeted old acquaintances with air kisses and polite smiles, deftly weaving a tapestry of social connections around her. With practiced skill, Naomi steered conversations to highlight her philanthropic efforts and subtly cast doubt on Cynthia's capabilities. She was determined to dominate the spotlight, ensuring that any mention of Cynthia came laced with insinuation. Hector stood by the entrance, greeting prominent donors and business associates. He wore an air of forced cheerfulness. The tension in his eyes was palpable. He had yet to fully unravel the mystery of the missing necklace, and the unpleasant suspicions weighed on him. Still, he put on a brave face, determined to make this event a success for the Children's Centre and his other charitable causes. Close by, Jonathan Harrington mingled with fellow entrepreneurs, always keeping one eye on Cynthia. He admired her resilience. Even under the scrutiny of these powerful, sometimes judgmental guests, she conducted herself with grace and a genuine smile. If only the world could see the purity of her heart, all of Naomi's slander would vanish like mist in sunlight. The orchestra struck its opening notes. Guests drifted toward their seats, preparing for the evening's presentations. Eventually, Hector took the stage to deliver his welcome address, emphasizing the importance of community support. Then he introduced the children's dance, calling Cynthia to join them on stage. Cynthia took a deep breath, stepping into the spotlight with the children around her. Their performance was magical. The dance told a story of hope, of children finding warmth and joy in a cold world. Cynthia moved with an elegance that left the audience spellbound. She guided the little ones with gentle nudges and smiles, ensuring they were synchronized and confident. By the time the final note faded, the crowd erupted into applause. For a brief, shining moment, all of Cynthia's anxieties melted away. Yet, backstage, a tempest brewed. Naomi had arranged for Yvette to slip away from the hotel and return to the mansion. Her orders were clear. She wanted Yvette to retrieve something from Cynthia's room, something that would cast Cynthia in a grievous light if revealed at the fundraiser. Naomi had discovered an old journal in which Cynthia had, years ago, written about her struggles with depression after her mother's death. Naomi planned to twist those vulnerable confessions into proof of Cynthia's instability, exploiting her emotional turmoil as evidence that Cynthia was prone to deceit and theft. But Naomi's plan took an unexpected turn. Christine, who had grown suspicious of Naomi's comings and goings, happened to notice Yvette leaving the hotel in haste. Christine slipped away from the fundraiser and followed the maid, curious about her errand. When Yvette arrived at the mansion, Christine waited in the shadows, watching carefully. Through a window, she saw Yvette rummaging through Cynthia's belongings until she found the worn, leather-bound journal. Christine's heart sank. She quickly deduced Naomi's intention to humiliate Cynthia in the most personal and devastating way. Back at the fundraiser, Cynthia was greeted by enthusiastic compliments and appreciative donors. Yet Naomi smiled coldly, a cat-like triumph glimmering in her eyes. She knew that once Yvette returned with the journal, she would have all the ammunition she needed to publicly shame Cynthia. Naomi imagined unveiling a few pages under the guise of concern right in front of Marcus Bellamy, the journalist. She could already picture the headlines questioning Cynthia's mental state and reliability. As the event progressed, the tension mounted. Cynthia felt the unease in the air, but couldn't pinpoint its source. Jonathan pulled her aside, quietly praising her performance and suggesting they speak privately after the event. His voice was kind, his gaze encouraging. Cynthia nodded, a flicker of hope warming her heart. But little did she know that at any moment, Naomi planned to strike like a snake, determined to deliver the final blow that would tarnish Cynthia's reputation forever. Christine quietly followed Yvette back to the hotel, determined to intervene. If Naomi managed to reveal Cynthia's journal, the damage would be immense. Those personal confessions were never meant to be paraded in front of society's elite. Christine's mind raced. She knew that confrontation with Naomi might be risky, but letting her proceed unchallenged was not an option. However, Christine was not alone in her determination. When she re-entered the hotel's back corridor, she nearly collided with Jonathan. who had also been searching for Naomi's staff. Christine explained to him in hushed tones what she had witnessed at the mansion. Jonathan's face darkened with concern. "We have to stop her," he said firmly. "Do you have any idea how we can turn the tables?" Christine bit her lip. "We could expose Naomi's real motives by proving she orchestrated the theft of the necklace. If Yvette confesses, we'll have more than enough evidence to show Naomi's pattern of deceit." But Yvette is too scared to talk. Jonathan glanced at his watch. The final speeches of the evening were about to begin. Maybe we can leverage the fact that Naomi is about to do something illegal, or at least ethically appalling, reading someone's private journal without consent. That's a violation of privacy. If we convince Yvette that she might face legal repercussions, she might come clean. They found Yvette in a side hallway, clutching the journal in trembling hands. She looked like a frightened rabbit cornered by wolves. Christine approached her gently. "Yvette, listen. This can't go on. You know Naomi is using you. If you help her ruin Cynthia's life, you could be held legally accountable as an accomplice. This is serious." Tears welled in Yvette's eyes. "I have no choice. She threatened to have me fired. My mother needs medical treatment, and my paycheck goes to her care," Naomi said. She trailed off, unable to finish. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Jonathan softened his voice. "I understand you're in a terrible position, but the truth is, Naomi doesn't care about you. She'll discard you the moment you're no longer useful. If you help us, we can protect you. I have resources and connections. We can ensure Naomi can't just sweep you aside." Yvette blinked through her tears, torn between fear and the longing to be free from Naomi's grasp. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded, as if resigning herself to the inevitable. "I'll do it. I'll tell the truth about the necklace and the journal. But please help me find another job, somewhere far from here." Christine gave her a reassuring smile. "That's a promise." Armed with Yvette's cooperation, Christine and Jonathan formulated a quick plan. They would wait for Naomi to make her move, then catch her red-handed with the journal and present Yvette's testimony. But they needed Hector's presence, and possibly Marcus Bellamy's, so there would be reputable witnesses when Naomi's deceit came to light. As Yvette slipped the journal discreetly back into her coat, Christine whispered, "We'll be right behind you. Don't hand that journal to Naomi until we give you the signal. We want everyone to see who's really behind this." The trio parted ways, each feeling the weight of what was about to unfold. Yvette would head toward the ballroom, with Christine and Jonathan shadowing her from a safe distance. Once Naomi presented her false story to the crowd or the journalist, they would confront her. The stakes were high. Either Naomi's plan would shatter, or her cunning would outmaneuver them yet again. Cynthia, meanwhile, stood at the edge of the ballroom, blissfully unaware of the machinations happening in the corridors. She was chatting with some patrons who praised her performance. Soon, Hector would give his closing remarks, and the event would wind down. The night seemed poised to end on a note of success for the fundraiser, but for Cynthia and Naomi, the final act of this drama was just about to begin. As the Winter's Grace fundraiser neared its finale, the atmosphere in the ballroom hummed with contentment and the afterglow of charitable generosity. Hector climbed the stage for his concluding speech. He expressed gratitude to all donors, praising Cynthia's dedication and acknowledging Naomi's contributions as well, though his gaze flickered with uncertainty when he mentioned her name. In the midst of Hector's speech, Naomi positioned herself near Marcus Bellamy, the journalist, and signaled Yvette with a subtle nod. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Without hesitation, Yvette approached Naomi with the leather-bound journal tucked under her arm. Naomi's eyes shone with triumphant malice as she accepted it. Marcus, sensing an unfolding drama, leaned closer. "What's that?" he asked, curiosity laced with intrigue. Naomi feigned reluctance, clutching the journal as though it were a burning coal. "It's something of Cynthia's," she said softly, "a personal diary. I've just learned that it might contain some troubling entries." "I'm torn, Mr. Bellamy. On one hand, I want to respect her privacy. On the other, I feel it's my duty to ensure the truth comes out, especially since there are rumors about a stolen necklace." Her voice trembled artfully, as if she truly were a mother figure worried about a troubled child. Marcus raised his eyebrows, hooking onto her every word. Nearby guests also began to perk up, sensing the shift in energy. In that tense moment, Jonathan and Christine stepped forward, flanking Naomi. Christine's voice cut through the chatter, calm but firm. "Naomi, what exactly are you planning to reveal about Cynthia?" Naomi, caught off guard, turned to face them. She glared at Yvette, who stood a few feet away, her posture stiff and anxious. "I'm only sharing the truth," Naomi said in a hollowly righteous tone. "I have reason to believe Cynthia's mental state is affecting her moral judgment." "This journal, that journal was stolen from Cynthia's room," Jonathan interrupted, his tone sharper than usual. "You're invading her privacy and using her personal confessions against her. Isn't that precisely the sort of behavior you warned the staff never to engage in?" The surrounding crowd, including Hector and Marcus Bellamy, now shifted their attention fully to this confrontation. Heads turned, whispers swirled. Naomi tried to maintain composure. "I'm only doing what any concerned stepmother would do," she insisted, pressing a hand dramatically over her heart. "I discovered this journal by accident. Yvette found it tucked in Cynthia's purse. She thought it was relevant to the stolen necklace situation. That was the cue." Christine nodded to Yvette, who stepped forward, trembling but resolute. The maid cleared her throat. I need to speak the truth." Her voice was so soft that Christine offered her a reassuring pat on the shoulder. Yvette's eyes flicked nervously around the room. "Miss Naomi forced me to plant the family necklace in Miss Cynthia's purse." A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers, including Hector, whose face drained of color. Cynthia, who had been near the edge of the crowd, felt her world tilt. Jonathan gently guided her closer, giving her a supportive arm to cling to. "That's not all," Yvette continued, tears building. "Mistress Naomi also ordered me to bring Cynthia's personal journal here tonight. She planned to show it to you, Mr. Bellamy, and claim that Miss Cynthia's entries proved she was unstable or deceitful." Yvette paused, glancing at Naomi, who looked livid. "But it's not true. Miss Cynthia is innocent. She never stole anything." Naomi's face contorted in rage. "This is a ridiculous lie," she spat, turning to Hector. "You can't possibly believe this, darling. She's just a disgruntled maid. She must be in league with Cynthia to embarrass me." But Naomi's protests fell on deaf ears. Hector's gaze, heavy with shock and dawning realization, never left his wife. "Naomi," he said quietly, "tell me this isn't true. Tell me you haven't been orchestrating all this from the start." Naomi's mouth opened and closed, struggling for an explanation, but the silent condemnation from everyone around her spoke volumes. Marcus Bellamy, always the journalist, took a step forward. "Is there any proof to corroborate Yvette's statement?" Christine pulled out her phone. "I recorded a conversation with Yvette earlier." She pressed play, and the muffled audio revealed the maid admitting to planting the necklace at Naomi's request and retrieving the journal under Naomi's orders. The ballroom erupted in shocked murmurs. Hector looked stunned, while Cynthia felt an overwhelming mix of vindication, relief, and heartbreak. Her stepmother, the woman who was supposed to be a maternal figure, had sought to destroy her. Naomi, seeing her carefully built facade crumble, let desperation take over. Her next move would push the evening's drama to a new level of intensity, one that no one, Not even Cynthia saw coming. Naomi's rage finally boiled over. With all eyes upon her and her schemes laid bare, she snapped. Like a coiled viper, she spun toward Cynthia, eyes brimming with malevolence. "You ungrateful little wretch," she hissed. "I gave you everything, and you dare to turn everyone against me?" Cynthia stood rooted to the spot, tears welling in her eyes. She wanted to speak, but her voice remained trapped in her throat. The stinging realization that Naomi had never cared for her, never wanted to be a true mother figure, seared her heart. Naomi lifted her hand, and before Cynthia could react, she struck her across the face with a sharp, resounding slap. The slap might as well have been thunder, cracking the tense silence in the ballroom. Cynthia stumbled backward, pressing a shaking hand to her burning cheek, her eyes wide with shock and pain. Gasps and cries rang out among the onlookers. Christine froze in horror, Jonathan's fists clenched in anger. But it was Hector who lunged forward, his face contorted with both fury and protective instinct. He grabbed Naomi's wrist, preventing a second blow that seemed moments away from landing. The strength and speed of Hector's reaction revealed the paternal love he held for Cynthia. "How dare you!" he shouted, his voice echoing through the suddenly silent room. "You will never, never lay a hand on my daughter again." Naomi tried to yank her wrist free, but Hector's grip was iron. In that instant, the polished, charming facade Naomi had presented to the world was shattered. Her eyes glistened with tears of defeat and rage, scanning the crowd of horrified faces. Everyone witnessed the truth. She was the manipulator, the aggressor, the one who had undermined the family's unity for her own gain. Security personnel and event staff surged forward, uncertain of what to do next, but ready to intervene if more violence ensued. Marcus Bellamy hurriedly jotted notes and snapped a photo with his phone. He knew he was witnessing a scandal that would shock the community. Christine rushed to Cynthia's side, enveloping her in a comforting embrace. Jonathan was also there, softly touching Cynthia's shoulder, his concern evident. Still gripping Naomi's wrist, Hector glared at his wife. "I want you out of here," he said, his voice cold with conviction. "Do you understand? Out of this hotel, out of my home. We will discuss formalities later, but for now, leave. You've disgraced this family and yourself." Naomi, tears streaking her face, realized she had lost. She tore her arm free from Hector's grasp. Without another word, she grabbed her purse and stormed out of the ballroom, her high heels echoing on the marble floor like a funeral march. A wave of hushed whispers followed in her wake. The scene she left behind was one of disbelief and uneasy relief. Cynthia trembled, her cheek throbbing, but the pain was overshadowed by a dizzying surge of emotional release. She was free from the looming threats and manipulations. Tears slipped down her face, mingling with a weak, relieved smile. Christine and Jonathan guided her off to a quieter corner, where a hotel staff member offered her ice for her cheek. Hector stepped to the microphone again, obviously shaken. He cleared his throat, struggling to regain composure. "I apologize," he said, addressing the stunned audience. "It appears we've had a personal crisis. Please, let's continue the evening's mission to support these children. We'll deal with this family matter privately." His voice wavered, but the audience offered a respectful round of applause, sympathetic to the explosive situation. But even as the official portion of the fundraiser resumed, no one could ignore what had just happened. Conversations buzzed about Naomi's downfall, about the newly revealed fact that she had orchestrated a vile plan against her stepdaughter. And in one electrifying moment, the tension that had built up for months had erupted only to subside into a strange, uncertain calm. For Cynthia, the sting on her cheek paled in comparison to the betrayal that battered her heart. Yet she also felt a profound sense of gratitude. Her father had stood up for her at last, unveiling Naomi's true colors to everyone present. Jonathan and Christine had orchestrated a bold plan to expose Naomi's lies, and Yvette had found the courage to speak the truth. That night marked the end of an era, the era in which Cynthia was the helpless Cinderella, locked away and despised by a cruel mistress. She had her father's love and protection now, and she had allies who would stand by her in the darkest storms. The road ahead remained uncertain, but for the first time she felt the shackles of Naomi's tyranny fall away. The next chapter of her life would be hers to claim, with the promise of healing and hope guiding her forward. The days after the fundraiser were a whirlwind of media frenzy. Headlines blazed with Naomi's public humiliation, labeling her the architect of a cruel plot. Photos and eyewitness accounts of the slap spread quickly, fueling the city's chatter. Hector issued a terse statement urging respect for his family's privacy, yet reporters swarmed the mansion gates, shouting questions whenever Cynthia ventured outside. Though cleared of wrongdoing, she found the sudden spotlight overwhelming. She clung to the children's drawings and letters of support, reminders of her purpose beyond scandal. Inside the mansion, relief mixed with lingering shock. Without Naomi's controlling presence, the household staff breathed more easily. Christine offered legal guidance to Hector, and Jonathan stood by Cynthia's side, a silent pillar of comfort. Their presence helped Cynthia cope with the sudden media onslaught. Meanwhile, Naomi retreated to a penthouse downtown, already contesting her eventual divorce settlement. She tried planting new rumors, but few believed her. Yvette, under Christine's protection, found safer employment. Finally free, she refused all attempts to coerce her into silence. Despite the chaos, a fragile sense of peace emerged. Cynthia reclaimed her childhood room, intent on honoring her mother's memory through renewed volunteer work and daily acts of kindness. Though the betrayal still stung, she felt hopeful for the first time in years. The mansion's dark shadows receded little by little, replaced by the promise of fresh starts and honest connections. A few days after the scandal, Hector asked Cynthia to join him in the garden once, her childhood retreat with her mother. Fresh lilies bloomed along the gazebo, a quiet nod to her late mother's favorite flower. Looking weary but resolute, Hector confessed, "I'm sorry for failing you. I was blind, wanting a complete family so badly that I ignored the signs. Naomi betrayed us both." Cynthia gripped his hand. "I understand, Dad. We can't change the past, but we can move forward." They strolled, recalling happier times, her mother's warm smiles, playful afternoons chasing butterflies. Each memory reminded them of the love they once shared as a family. Hector then revealed he was filing for divorce and revising Cynthia's inheritance, so she'd have complete control once she turned 21. Touched, Cynthia accepted with a tremulous smile. "I'll use it wisely in Mom's memory." They embraced, letting forgiveness outweigh bitterness. Leaving the gazebo, father and daughter stepped into the mansion side by side, hearts lighter, certain that honesty and unity would guide the family's future. Cynthia's 21st birthday dawned with warm sunlight streaming through her bedroom windows. Instead of a grand affair, she chose a simple, heartfelt gathering in the mansion's main hall, decorated in soft pastels, fresh flowers, and a few cherished photos of her late mother. Friends and staff arrived early, eager to celebrate a day that felt more like a homecoming than a party. The children from the community center performed a short dance, delighting everyone with their energy. Christine helped coordinate the event, ensuring every detail glowed with sincerity. Even Yvette quietly joined, smiling shyly at Cynthia. When Jonathan presented a bouquet of lavender roses matching Cynthia's dress, her cheeks warmed with an unspoken tenderness. Hector, looking rested after their recent trials, offered a moving toast, praising his daughter's resilience. Tearfully, Cynthia cut a small, elegant cake, wishing for hope and peace in the days ahead. As she danced with Jonathan in the softly lit hall, Cynthia felt the weight of old burdens fade. No longer trapped by Naomi's manipulations, she embraced a future guided by genuine bonds and compassion. The mansion that once echoed with discord now filled with laughter and renewed promise, marking the dawn of a new, happier chapter in Cynthia's life. A month after Cynthia's birthday celebration, the Robles mansion settled into a tranquil new rhythm. The once constant press attention had faded, allowing Cynthia and Hector to resume more regular routines. Yvette's replacement, a cheerful housekeeper named Rosa, filled the halls with a sense of optimism. Even the household staff, who had weathered Naomi's storm, seemed lighter in spirit, relieved to be free of daily manipulations. Naomi, now barred from the mansion, had escalated her legal demands, attempting to claim a generous share of Hector's wealth. She threatened to release incriminating, though fabricated information to tabloids if she did not receive a substantial settlement. Hector's lawyers, however, were well prepared. They possessed a trove of evidence of Naomi's deceit, including recorded testimony from Yvette. The truth had a powerful way of repelling false allegations. Moreover, Christine Delgado took an active role behind the scenes. Advising Hector's legal team, she carefully compiled timelines of Naomi's misconduct, pairing them with text messages, audio recordings, and testimony from staff. Each piece of evidence chipped away at Naomi's case. In the end, Hector's lawyers negotiated a settlement that fell far below Naomi's initial demands. While she received a modest sum to expedite her departure, it wasn't enough to sustain her luxurious tastes indefinitely. During this period, Cynthia spent her time and resources remodeling part of the mansion into a creative art space for children. The new Elaine wing, named after Cynthia's mother, included rooms for dance lessons, art workshops, and small concerts. Generous donations poured in from sponsors who admired Cynthia's resilience and genuine philanthropic spirit. She also extended partnerships to other community organizations, forging a network of support for underprivileged youth. Word of Cynthia's dedication and warmth spread beyond the city limits. Invitations arrived for her to speak at charity luncheons and youth events. She approached each opportunity with humility, focusing on the children's needs rather than her own dramatic backstory. Yet many attendees were curious about her personal journey, seeing in her a modern-day Cinderella who had overcome adversity without losing her compassionate nature. Meanwhile, Jonathan Harrington assumed a quieter, more intimate role in Cynthia's life. He proved indispensable in handling the expansion of her projects, connecting her with philanthropic circles eager to invest in community building. In the evenings, after long days of planning and budgeting, Jonathan and Cynthia would stroll through the garden, discussing not just business, but also sharing hopes for the future. Their relationship blossomed into a tender romance, one nurtured by mutual respect and a shared vision of helping others. On a crisp autumn morning, they stood together at the threshold of the Elaine wing, preparing for the official ribbon-cutting ceremony. Hector was inside, greeting guests and donors, while Christine helped coordinate last-minute details. Cynthia held the large, ceremonial scissors, her hand brushing lightly against Jonathan's. In the hush before the festivities, he smiled at her, eyes brimming with admiration. "Your mother would be so proud of you," he said. Cynthia felt her heart swell with gratitude for her father's love, for Christine's unwavering friendship, for Jonathan's gentleness, and for the simple fact that she had found her voice amidst the chaos. With a confident snip, she cut the ribbon, signaling the start of a new era. Applause erupted, and children rushed in, eager to explore the bright, art-filled space that would soon hold their laughter and creativity. And in that moment, the shadows of Naomi's treachery felt like a distant memory. Cynthia realized she had claimed her story, forging a life guided by compassion and resilience. No longer was she the timid Cinderella waiting for rescue. She had rescued herself by choosing truth, by trusting her allies, and by never letting bitterness eclipse her generous heart. The future, however uncertain, now seemed filled with brilliant possibilities waiting to be embraced. Thank you for journeying with us through the twists and turns of Cynthia's modern Cinderella story. In a whirlwind of betrayal, heartbreak, and final redemption, she emerged not just a survivor, but a champion for truth and kindness. We witnessed how one determined spirit, supported by loyal friends and family, can stand strong against the most cunning manipulations. And in the end, good prevailed not through magic wands or fairy godmothers, but through courage, integrity, and steadfast love. If this tale inspired you or touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with friends who could use a spark of hope, and subscribe to our channel for more gripping stories of resilience and triumph. Your support helps us bring more heartfelt narratives to life. Thank you again, and until next time, stay hopeful, stay kind, and keep believing in the power of truth.